Und deshalb möchte ich euch unseren ersten Redner vorstellen. Unseren ersten Redner, I switched to English because he's an English speaker. Our first speaker for today is José Cordeiro. He's a futurist, and he is not only a futurist, he's the futurist, the most recognized futurist in the Spanish-speaking world. He originally from Venezuela. He lives in Spain right now. And right now, he is director of one of the directors of the Millennium Project, which is the biggest project in futurism you have in the world. He is the director of the International Longevity Alliance, which is a new organization. You will explain probably what they do, and together with leading scientists all over the world, he's working on decoding our biological clock and turning it back medically. So his vision is aging and death will be soon voluntary. Der Tod ist etwas, was du wählst. Das ist ein interessanter Gedanke. Ja? So, read his book. I show you his book. This is his book. Der Sieg über den Tod. And before you can read all these pages, please have a look at page 11, because at page 11 you see a quote of me, which is very nice that you put into this book. But before you can read all these interesting pages, you will see José on stage. Please join me on stage, José. José, what an honor. Thank you for naming me in this book.
You are there twice. Huh? You quote in page 11 and in the acknowledgements in page 328. So read it.
Look this up. Thank you so much. So immortality is a bold prediction, of course it is. I'm wondering, are you already immortal, or are you still working on it?
Well, I'm still working on it. In fact, we have to work until the end of times, because to be immortal, we have to be here at the end of times, and that is millions, billions of years ahead of us.
That's true.
But I don't plan to die. If that's your question, I don't plan to die. Even better, I plan to be younger in the future. I hope in 20 years to be biologically 20 years of age, as I will explain soon.
And you came up. You was the man who came up in our speakers' dinner with the idea of we have at least maybe plan A, plan B, and there is a plan C, which is the digital plan. You will explain in your story which one of these plans you will explain.
Well, plan A is immortality through biological rejuvenation. Plan B, the next speaker, Xiaoxi, has to do with that, which is cryonics. So plan B is if you die, please don't die, but if you die, get frozen. And plan 3 is brain-mind uploading. Yes.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about in my short introduction. So let's don't waste time. This is your stage. We are really happy to have you here, and we can't wait to hear your story.
Thank you so much, and it is a pleasure to be back in Leipzig after 40 years. I was here when this was the DDR, the old Soviet times. Anyway, it's a beautiful city, and I love Germany. Und ich spreche ein wenig Deutsch, but kaputt. Guten Morgen. Okay. Also, I don't speak in German because I learned it in Austria. I was at the United Nations in Austria, in Vienna, and they speak a funny language there in Austria. So I want to talk about the biggest dream of humanity, which is immortality. But also, to begin, I have a quote by Benjamin Franklin, who was one of these geniuses, and he said there are only two things certain in life: taxes and death. And I don't like taxes, and I like death even less. So I think we should avoid those. As Sven said, I was born in Venezuela. Actually, my family is Spanish, but they left Spain when Spain was a dictatorship. As you know, Francisco Franco was the last fascist dictator in Spain, and Spain was very poor. And he went to Venezuela that was very rich and very democratic. Now, the situation is the opposite. Now, Venezuela is a horrible totalitarian regime and very poor, and Spain is more or less democratic, more or less wealthy. Venezuela means piccola Venezia, and like Venice, is sinking. And I used to work with the mayor of Caracas, who had been Miss Universe, Irene Sáenz Conde. I was her energy advisor, Miss Universe, and then mayor of the capital. Sadly, in the last election, she was running for president. She did not win. It was not the beauty who won, it was the beast, Chavez. And that is why 9 million Venezuelans have left the country. Horrible tragedy. But I'm not going to talk about news, and I'm not going to talk about the past. I'm going to talk about good news, and I'm going to talk about the future. I am an engineer by training in the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. In my first working life, I was working in energy. Now I am working in longevity. As Sven mentioned, I lead the Millennium Project for Spain and Latin America. This is the largest futurist group in the world. We have nodes in many parts of the planet, and we look at the trends of the planet and the global challenges, and we publish books about all the technologies of the future. We do scenarios, Delphi surveys, like this one for the year 2050, for example. Also, we do regional studies. I coordinated this for Latin America in the year 2030, and then I presented it at the World Economic Forum, Davos, Switzerland, that you know. And I was even on TV a couple of times with Donald Trump. That was very interesting. But anyway, 15 years ago, I moved to California, and I am one of the founding faculty of Singularity University in Silicon Valley, financed with Google, NASA, and many other global institutions, with 2 MIT colleagues, Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis. So in 2009, I moved to Mountain View, Silicon Valley, California, to go to this experimental university about the singularity. I imagine you know what the singularity is. It's the time when a global artificial intelligence will surpass all of human intelligence combined, but that will have incredible opportunities and challenges. One of the opportunities is that we will become immortal by 2045. We actually religiously use this date, 2045. This was written by my friend, as I mentioned, and mentor, Ray Kurzweil, in his famous book, The Singularity is Near, 20 years ago. He just published the new edition, The Singularity is Nearer, closer, and he keeps his magic date of 2045. Humanity is stabilizing demographically. If you look at the population of the planet, it is finally stabilizing, and it is declining in some countries, like Germany or Spain or China. China is losing a lot of people now. China every year loses 1 Germany. Incredible. The demographic implosion of China has never been seen in humanity in times of peace. Anyway, the population is stabilizing. What keeps on growing is the economy of the planet. If you look at the GDP, the gross domestic product per capita, it was stagnant until the year 18, around, at $1,000 per person per year. Then the Industrial Revolution began, and the planet, the economy of the planet has been growing exponentially. If you look, this is exponential scale on the vertical axis, so it is an incredible economic growth for the whole planet. And all the regions of the planet are growing now. China, India, even Africa. You can see it even more clearly in the stock exchanges. This is the New York Dow Jones Index, and you can see an incredibly exponential growth. Look at the vertical axis, exponential scale, over 2 centuries of data. With wars, with pandemics, with anything, the economy is growing exponentially. And this is fantastic. And this began, again, with the Industrial Revolution. The first country that doubled its income per capita in a systematic way was the United Kingdom, where the Industrial Revolution began. But it took 58 years for the first time in history to double the income per capita. Then other countries, the USA, did it shorter. And now China, as we all know, China every 7, 8, 9 years doubles its income per capita. India is catching up, and Africa will be catching up in the next 10 years. This is fantastic. The economy of the whole planet is growing exponentially. And it began, again, with the Industrial Revolution. Until the 18th century, there was no economic growth in the planet. This is what was called the Malthusian trap. We were in this trap, in this Malthusian trap. No growth, really, in history, in humanity, in a systematic way, until the 19th century. The economy grew close to 100%. In the 20th century, close to 400%. And in this 21st century, the economy probably will grow 2,000, 3,000%. We have seen nothing yet. This is truly the best time to be alive. And technology is growing exponentially. Things are moving faster, things are becoming smaller, cheaper, and better. But we don't understand the nature of exponential change because we think linearly. And linear things are very different. Linear things are slow. Like if I give 30 linear steps, each step of 1 meter, 1 meter, 1 meter, after 30 meters, I have walked, 30 steps, I have walked 30 meters. But if I walk exponentially and I double, after 30 doublings, I have walked over 1 billion meters, and I have gone around planet Earth 26 times. It is an incredibly big difference between thinking linearly or exponentially. And now this is beginning to happen with longevity. In the time of the Roman Empire, average life expectancy in Europe was 20. In Rome, the capital, was 25. And now, by the 19th century, we doubled. Now we are doubling again, and we are going to double life expectancy again. But soon, with rejuvenation. Because we don't want to be immortally old. No one wants that. What we want to be is immortally young. And these are the things that we began working on at Singularity University. To show you exponential technologies, when I went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, I used this primitive technology. This is an IBM punch card, which was 1K of memory. This is about 10 by 100. There were different sizes, but 10 by 100 is 1,000, 1K. 1K, I used this, 1K of mechanical memory that you could not erase, you could not change. And that is why electromagnetic memories were invented. I have the first generation here, 40 years old, floppy disk. Also 1K, but this 1K was bigger because it had a bigger hole. And you could erase. But 40 years ago, when I was at university, in Spanish, you know, and in German, K is K. So I had one mechanical K plus one electromagnetic K. 1K plus 1K makes one caca. One caca. I used caca at MIT 40 years ago. Fortunately, we advanced from caca to this. Probably you remember this. This was 512 cacas. And then from that, even the younger people know this. This was 1.4 mega. And now I have a pen drive here of 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte. In 40 years, we have moved from caca to terabytes. In the next 20 years, you will remember me, and you will remember caca. But this will be caca. 1 terabyte will be caca. So that you see the incredible advances in exponential technologies that is moving from computers into medicine, into biology. As you can see with the sequence of the human genome, which began in 1990 and it finished in 2003. It took 13 years and over $1 billion just for the US government to sequence the first human genome. Today, you can sequence your human genome for $100 in a few hours. This is incredible, and this is twice exponentially. It is exponentially in time and exponentially in cost, and it has not stopped. In 5 years, you will be able to sequence your genome probably for $10 in 1 minute. This is moving exponentially fast, and it will change medicine, because we are going to know who we are. In fact, I have sequenced my genome, both complete and partial sequence. I will show you the partial sequence so that you don't know everything about me. When you sequence your genome partially, you will know which diseases you will have. What is the probability of you having Alzheimer's, having cancer, etc. Isn't this interesting to know what you could die of so that you don't die of that? That is the beauty of the future. But also, you can find out where you come from, where your ancestors are from. This is my paternal line in the last few centuries. And you see my father mostly Spain and France. And famous people, oh, it's not here. Famous people related to my father, Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, you see I have a little bit of Mongolia, Asia. So Genghis Khan is among my ancestors on my father's side. On my mother's side, again, it's God because of the Succum's Congress. But here it says Maria Antoinette. You know, from France. Anyway, so my pedigree has between Genghis Khan and Maria Antoinette. All of you will know where you come from when you sequence your genome. And you will be able to verify for the first time if your father is really your father. But more interesting than looking into the past is looking into the future. And we are going to design our children. I saw your children, Sven. Well, you can design them next time. We will design our children in the next 5 to 10 years. This is an experiment I did with one of my students at Singularity University, sharing genes. I shared genes with one of my students. This is a theoretical experiment to see which genes we could choose for our descendants. And this will be a standard in 5 to 10 years. It will be a standard. In fact, we are the last generation that has not been designed. All of us are here by mistake. We were not designed. In the future, designing our babies will be the standard. And at the end, remember, we are just genomic information. The human genome is 3 gigabytes. 3 gigabytes. Even Sven, don't think you are so big. You are 3 gigabytes of data. This pen drive is 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes. So how many humans can I fit in this pen drive? 1,000 gigabytes divided by 3 gigabytes per person. That makes 333 Germans and a little Austrian. Okay. After reading genomes, we are beginning to write genomes, In the year 2000, scientists for the first time created an artificial virus. But viruses are small and are not always alive. But in 2010, the first bacteria was artificially created. And look, this is exponential growth. In the next 20 years, we will be able to write and modify human genomes. As a futurist, we look in the future in different ways. The worst way is to be passive, like an ostrich, not like an Austrian. I love Vienna and Austria, please. If someone is from there, don't take it bad. I just like to make jokes, huh? And offend people. By the way, if I have not offended someone by the end, come to me and I will offend you personally. So, okay, the worst way to look at the future is to be passive, like an ostrich. You hide your head, you don't want to see what is going to happen. Horrible, horrible. A little less bad is to be reactive, like a firefighter. You come when there is an emergency. It is better to be Preactive, you prepare yourself for anything, like when you buy insurance to be ready for any problem. But the best way is to be proactive, because we can create the future. We can build the future. Or otherwise, we can break the rules. So I hope we don't have ostriches here. But if we have ostriches, use technology to fly and see what is coming. At Singularity University, we used to say, Uber yourself before you get Kodak. because you are going to be disrupted no matter what. So it is better that you disrupt yourself. 16 years ago, I went to visit Sir Arthur C. Clarke. I love science fiction, and he was one of the greatest science fiction writers. He was an engineer, actually, and he became famous writing books and then movies for Hollywood like Space Odyssey 2001. But he's also famous for the 3 laws of the future. First law of the future: when a famous scientist says that something is possible, he's probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law of the future: the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. And third law of the future: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. When I was in MIT, I typed my first thesis in a primitive technology called typewriter. I don't know if you have seen that caca technology of the past. But that existed. I could not imagine internet. I could not imagine so many things that we have today. In fact, computer personals became, popular 30 years ago, cell phones 20 years ago, global companies in technology, Google, Facebook, Amazon. But we have seen nothing yet. Now technology is being used for the biggest dream of humanity, which is immortality. 5,000 years ago, the first book was written, which is the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia in cuneiform characters, a very old system in Mesopotamia. First book ever written, and it is about immortality. The second book, 4,000 years old, in Egypt, hieroglyphic writing, the Book of the Dead. It's about immortality. The Chinese emperor, Qin Shi Huang, who built the terracotta army to be immortal, he wanted to be immortal, but he didn't have the technology, like the Egyptians didn't have it, or the Mesopotamians, the Spanish. When Spain discovered America, they were looking for the fountain of eternal youth. The goal was eternal youth, immortality. And all religions talk about immortality. All religions talk about immortality. But they want immortality in the future somewhere else, and we can have immortality here and now very soon. We just came from a tiny pandemic called COVID. It's the first time in history that the whole planet has been paralyzed. This never happened before in history, the whole planet. And if you look at the risk factor, number one is age. The older you were, the higher the probability to die. And COVID paralyzed the whole planet. And COVID was a caca pandemic. A caca pandemic. You know what is a big pandemic? The bubonic plague. The bubonic plague killed 1 out of every 3 Europeans. 1 out of every 3 of us would be dead with the bubonic plague. And this caca pandemic paralyzed the planet. Only 0.001 died of COVID. Compared to bubonic plague, or you know what is even worse than the bubonic plague? Aging. Aging will kill 100% of us. 100% of us until we stop it, which we are very close. So talking about pandemics, as I mentioned, the biggest pandemic in history was the bubonic plague. Then we had the smallpox or the Spanish flu, which was not the Spanish and it was not the flu, but it killed 50 million people 100 years ago, which is the equivalent of 200 million people today dying of the Spanish flu. Or AIDS. AIDS already is over 40 million people dying. But all diseases, all chronic diseases, the number one risk factor is your age. Number one risk factor for cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, influenza. The number one risk factor is your age. So now medicine is finally changing. Diseases are not separate. And what we have had until today is sick care. Now we are moving into the real world of health care, where all diseases are combined and around aging. Aging is the mother of all chronic diseases. Aging is the problem. Aging is the elephant in the room. It is not cancer. It is not Alzheimer's. The problem is aging. And finally, medicine is beginning to understand this. So 6 years ago, a colleague from Cambridge, England, David Good, and I decided to write a book about the biggest challenge of humanity, which is not climate change, it is not terrorism, it is not Russia, it is not the Chinese, it is not the Martians. The biggest problem of humanity is that we are all dying, all of us, unless we do something. And for the first time in history, we are very close to stop and reverse aging. And humanity really needs to get together. If we get together for a caca pandemic like COVID, how can we get together for the biggest dream of humanity? So anyway, my book, when it came out, was #1 and 5 in Spanish, in paper and Kindle. We are donating all the royalties to 2 foundations, one in the USA, Sense Research Foundation, one in Spain, because I live in Spain, 50% of the royalties. The book has become a global bestseller in the 3 most important languages of the world, Spanish, English, and Chinese. Actually, my book has been published by the government of China because China is imploding demographically. China is collapsing, and they want to stop that, obviously. The book has been changed titles in other languages, like you see in German, Der Sieg über den Tod. In Bulgarian, it's like the end of death. In Russian style, death must die. I actually like the name, death must die. In Chinese, you don't use the word death. Death is bad luck in China. So in Chinese, it's called eternal life. Eternal life. Why? Because China is imploding demographically. The population of China is dramatically dropping very quickly. China will have only 732 million people by the end of the century. India will overtake it. Actually, India overtook China last year, but also India is stabilizing in 20 years and beginning to decline. So anyway, the situation of the world is changing demographically. Going back to technologies, my friend Ray Kurzweil, in his new book, The Singularity is Nearer, he explains his 2 magic dates that I use and many of the people in this area. 2029, for passing the Alan Turing test, even though it will probably happen earlier than 2029. Passing the Alan Turing test, you will not know if you are talking to a human or to a machine. And also, 2029 to 2030 is the time of longevity escape velocity. That means if we make it until 2030, we will gain 1 year per year. And that will basically make us immortal, but still aging. We will live long enough to live forever until 2045, when we will have technologies for biological rejuvenation, because that is the goal. The goal is biological rejuvenation. Because today we are beginning to understand that aging is a disease, the mother of all diseases, but it is curable. It is curable. And we have discovered many things in biology, and we have extended the life of different species. For mice, we have mice that live 200 human years equivalent. Mice live between 2 and 2.5 years, and we have mice that live 5 years now. We have mosquitoes that live 400 human years, and we have worms that live 1,000 human years equivalent. These are called the Methuselah worms because they live 1,000 years like Methuselah, almost. Do you think scientists make these Methuselah worms because they like the worms? No, this is to use in humans. But it is even more incredible that we have discovered that immortality already exists in biology. We don't have to create it. And there are several types of cells that are immortal, like cancer cells. In 1951, it was discovered with a patient called Henrietta Lacks, and her cells are called HeLa cells, because those cells don't age. In fact, she died of cancer in 1951, but her cells are alive today. Even though they are 100 years old, they don't age. They don't age. They are centenarian cells, and they keep on reproducing like teenagers. Because this is what cancer does. Cancer stops aging. And that is why we need to kill cancer, because cancer is bad for us, because it doesn't age and keeps on growing and reproducing. But not only cancer cells are immortal, also the most important cells, which are the reproductive cells, the germ cells in our bodies, do not age. Germ cells, the most important cells, do not age. So immortality already exists in nature, and now we are discovering how nature did it. It is not so complicated. In fact, it is so easy that cancer discovered it without going to university. Cancer didn't go to university, doesn't know how to read, and it discovers it in every person. All of us have cancer continuously since we are born. But our body becomes weaker and weaker, and then we cannot fight cancer. And some people die of cancer. But anyway, cancer cell discovered immortality without knowing how to read. And without spending €1. Not €1, and cancer discovered immortality. So we are very close to curing cancer and discovering immortality. And there are many species that are immortal. There are hydras and jellyfish that are biologically immortal. This means that they don't age. It doesn't mean that they don't die, because they can have accidents. And my goal is to be immortal. But that doesn't mean I will not die, because if a piano falls on my head, I get pianized. Okay? But the goal is not to age and to be young. The most beautiful thing is that life appeared to live, not to die. The first life forms in the planet, small bacteria with circular chromosomes, do not age. During 3 billion years, bacteria were basically immortal. Life appeared to live, not to die. There are some stupid people that say death is what gives meaning to life. This is so much bullshit. This is like saying divorce is what gives meaning to marriage. No. What gives meaning to marriage is marriage. What gives meaning to life is life. It's not death. So my dear friend, Aubrey de Grey, his previous foundation is the one receiving my money. He began campaigning around the year 2000 about these ideas. And he was called a charlatan by my university. MIT, in the publication Technology Review, said that this guy was crazy, basically. In 2019, they asked for forgiveness. The same publication, MIT Technology Review. Look at the incredible change of opinion from being impossible to being almost there. This was explained by German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, when he said all truth goes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And finally, it is accepted as self-evident. This will be accepted in 2045, and we are going to remember today when we were so barbaric and primitive that we let people die today. This is the most important campaign to stop aging, and we need to react. So I am very happy that this is going globally. In fact, I was 2 years ago in Buenos Aires with my friend Javier Milei, who has said publicly that he does not plan to die. He cloned his dog, and he doesn't like taxes, by the way. So he is the first libertarian immortalist president, and he said that my book is his favorite book in La Nación, which is the main newspaper of Argentina. Imagine, when he mentioned my book, it multiplied itself by 1,000%. But not only him, more people are seeing that we are close to curing aging and to reverse aging. Of course, my friend, mentor, professor Ray Kurzweil talks about the 3 bridges of immortality, what we are going to see in the next few years. And all companies in Silicon Valley are talking about immortality. Google created a company to solve death. They say death is a technical problem, and death will have a technical solution. The company that they created is called Calico, California Life Company. And I have 2 students of mine working there. So they are doing many things in terms of rejuvenation. But not only Google, also Mark Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan, who is a medical doctor who studied biology at Harvard, where they met at Harvard. They created a foundation, the Chan-Zuckerberg Foundation, to cure all diseases, all diseases. And they said something incredible. that I still remember when they created this foundation 10 years ago. They said that they had a baby, their first daughter, called Maxima. They said that Maxima would not die. How many parents can say that? That her daughter will not die of aging. She could die of a broken heart or something else, but not of aging, because we are going to cure aging in this generation. And then we have companies like Microsoft also investing on this and solving cancer. I'm pretty sure in 5 years, we are going to cure most cancers, because now we understand the biological basis of cancer, and we are seeing what cancer did. It's not magic. And all of us get cancer. So how do we discover this? Which are the mutations in the genes? And then Tim Cook also has said that Apple will be remembered in the future for what they will do in health. I have seen that some of you have iPhones and some other bullshit like that from Apple. But people will remember Apple not by the iPhones or the Macintosh. They will be remembered, but they will do in health. And the wealthiest person in the world, well, he competes with Elon Musk. Sometimes Tesla is higher, sometimes Amazon is higher. But anyway, Jeff Bezos is the main financier of a company called Altos Labs in California. I have 5 Spanish scientist friends working in this company. And the goal of Altos is biological rejuvenation, particularly for Jeff Bezos, who needs it because he's going to get married again. This will be the biggest industry in the planet, and all the technology companies are moving into health. This is estimated to be over $8 trillion per year. So I don't know what you do, and I don't care. If you are not into longevity, health, and rejuvenation, you are not into the future, and you might die. So this industry began 20 years ago in the order of millions. Now it's in the order of billions, and soon it will be in the order of trillions. A few months ago, I was with my friend Peter Diamandis in Saudi Arabia for the creation of the biggest foundation in Saudi Arabia, which is called Evolution. Evolution is health plus evolution. And they are financing the biggest prize in the history of humanity, which is the Rejuvenation Prize. $101 million to be awarded by the end of 2030 in Saudi Arabia. This prize wants to rejuvenate people between ages 65 and 80. Actually, they have decreased it to age 50 now. Between age 50 and 80 to rejuvenate at least 10 years by the end of 2030. We are going to see magic. We are going to see magic. There are 600 teams competing on this from all over the world. Pharmaceutical companies, startups, hospital, clinics, wealthy individuals like Jeff Bezos. But for those who are still not convinced, let me show you. In 2012, Japanese biologist Shinya Yamanaka got the Nobel Prize, as you can see from the website, for rejuvenated a cell. He discovered that there are 4 genes in mammals that control the age. We invited him to Spain 2 years ago, and we gave him the Spanish equivalent of the Nobel Prize, which is a piece of shit, only 10,000 euros. But he came, and he actually is working with several Spanish scientists on biological rejuvenation. Anyway, he got the Nobel Prize for rejuvenating a cell. Probably you know the Nobel Prize in chemistry last year was won by Google DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, for folding proteins, which was a problem that would take centuries to know how all the proteins are formed. Just to understand one protein is a PhD thesis of one student. Well, AlphaFold from Google DeepMind sequenced 200 million proteins in a weekend. And they got the Nobel Prize in chemistry for that. Well, now they created a company which is called Isomorphic Labs. As you can see, to solve all diseases, not 1 or 2, all diseases using artificial intelligence. And this is Google, and this has billions of dollars. Also, they got the Nobel Prize, but you know that's a piece of shit compared to billions of dollars. My dear friend, David Sinclair, who studied also at MIT before moving down to Harvard, he actually probably might get also the Nobel Prize because he rejuvenated an organ. The Nobel Prize, Shinya Yamanaka, 2012, rejuvenated one cell. His team at Harvard rejuvenated one organ, the eyes of blind mice, age 80. Through the 4 genes he discovered, actually, he only used 3 of the 4 genes. He could rejuvenate the eyes of blind mice. Mice that were about 80 human years equivalent, those eyes were rejuvenated to age 20. And the eyes could see again. Incredible. Now they are working in more organs. They are working on rejuvenating kidneys, livers, lungs, hearts. So in the future, I plan to be younger because the technology is coming. So this is science. I don't want to be rejuvenated by the Russians' face app. You know, Russians, they have face app that makes you whatever you want. No, no. I plan to be younger thanks to biotechnology. But this is the dream of humanity, and it's very complex, and we need to meditate. What does immortality mean? But humans, we are not the end of evolution, even though many people think we are. No, no, we came from monkeys, and we are still evolving. But this takes millions of years to evolve biologically. Now we can evolve scientifically, technologically, and this will change humanity forever. But carefully, carefully, we don't want to finish like that. Humans have existed only 200,000 years in this shape and form. Only 200,000 years. This is nothing in the history of evolution of our planet. The dinosaurs ruled the planet for 200 million years. And bacteria ruled the planet before for 3 billion years. And remember, the first bacteria were immortal. Some of them might still be alive today. Immortal bacteria. So this will make us meditate because everything has yin and yang, and yin yang inside has little yin yang, and little yin yang has even little yin yang. I love Chinese, Japanese philosophy, and I lived 3 years in Tokyo. This is the famous picture of the world at night. Well, you can see it's old because Spain was illuminated, and there was the blackout in Spain. But the Chinese say, we don't want to blame darkness. What we want is to illuminate the world, to light up a candle. So my goal here is to light up a candle because the world has 2 possibilities, like the 2 Koreas. Actually, when I came to Leipzig in 1980-something, this was the DDR, and this was the dark Germany. And West Germany was the bright Germany. As you can see, the 2 Koreas. This is real. This is incredible. South Korea has the best internet of Asia. And North Korea is the last country in the planet still without public internet. Where do we want to go? The way of North Korea or the way of the future? So, in China, this is a beautiful word that means crisis. I learned Chinese characters, so before I wrote it upside down or sideways. Now I write it well. And this is crisis. Crisis in Chinese has 2 characters. The first character is danger. Danger. But the second character is opportunity. We are living in the most incredible times in history. We are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. So where do you want to be? So you need to read The Death of Death, and I invite you to the biggest 2 events in the USA. Actually, my dear friend Liz Parrish, that is sitting there, and she will speak in the afternoon. She is the first patient being rejuvenated with gene therapy. So, yeah, we are going to be in Las Vegas. We invite you to Las Vegas. We will have Liz Parrish, Aubrey de Grey, myself, and so many other people. But if you don't want to go to Las Vegas, come to Madrid. In Madrid, we have the biggest longevity event in the most important place, in the College of Medical Doctors of Spain. And why Madrid? Because Madrid has the longest life expectancy of the European Union. As you can see, we are part of the Mediterranean, and in fact, the 2 most longevous countries are Italy and Spain. And the life expectancy, this is actually 2 years ago. Life expectancy in Madrid today is 86.1. 86.1. So, please, people from Leipzig, you are welcome to Madrid. Actually, I ran for the European Parliament in the last election. and I got about 7,000 votes, which is good. I don't know that many people. But my goal is to change Spain, that Spain was the country of non plus ultra. During the Roman Empire, Spain was the end of the empire. So there was nothing far beyond non plus ultra. When Spain discovered America, the non was taken out, and now Spain, as you can see in the Spanish flag, is the country of plus ultra. But my goal is that Spain will be the country of vita plus ultra. And so I organized in Madrid a march for longevity. So if you come, you will get our balloons, our T-shirts, and banners. We will go to the government. This is the Congress of Spain, asking for immortality. It says stop aging in Spanish, stop aging. So anyway, I want to remind you, I don't like taxes, and I hate death. And we are close to killing death. So we need your help. And Benjamin Franklin was wrong in this. In this statement was wrong. But he was very right in this other one. In wine, there is wisdom. In beer, there is freedom. But in water, there is bacteria. So my friends, live long and prosper. Live long and prosper.
José Cordeiro, which is really great. José, we will have you back on stage. We do a short break. I introduce another speaker, and then you come back to stage, and we have a fireside chat. Okay?
Sure.
Very good.